Oh, that's good. Hello. Okay, so how to run a meetup, aka a 2 hour-ish event or workshop or dinner party or evening or something. Uh, so meetup, I use that language as a short form for just that, a 2 hour opportunity for a group of people to be in a room with you, um, and for you to do your magic. It is a very popular online platform all over the world, meetup.com, if you guys don't know it. I think everybody knows it by this point, all over the world, where I think it's freaking brilliant, where people can announce, under a theme. I host events around hiking or knitting or cooking or spirituality or investment banking or whatever an area of interest is. And then people in the community know to look on there to find things of interest who are looking for things to do. And they can find yours. And then underneath your main theme, which is sort of a natural platform for community building, you can have like individual events that can have different themes themselves. On every second Thursday of the month, we gather at this yoga studio to do X. And then the third Thursdays of the month, we gather at the park to do Y, around whatever your special expertise is of what you're doing. And they advertise for you, in a sense. It's a platform where people actually look. So you'll end up with 300 people in your meetup, and then every time you announce a new one, it pops into their email. It's like free marketing. It's a great way to do it. When I ran my meals, so they're kind of like they live on there. However, the links to them, you can post them anywhere you want. You can put them in your newsletters. You could put them in your Facebook groups. I would concurrently have my meetup group link, then create a Facebook event, and then invite all my friends on Facebook that live in a certain area to that event through the same thing, kind of thing, and then post about it everywhere. But it lives on Meetup. So I find that to be useful. That said, they don't need to live on Meetup. They could just be, 2 hour events that you let your church group know about. It doesn't live anywhere. It's just your friends, and you have a WhatsApp group of friends, and you just let them know we're gathering on Tuesday at my house to do a thing. Right? It doesn't have to live on Meetup in any way. But just so you know why I'm using that lingo, it's easy and everyone kind of understands it. What we're going to talk about now can be extended to a workshop, like a full day kind of event, or 2 days or whatever. It's not just particular about a 2 to 3 hour one, but you just, it's like accordion it out, fill it in with some more content and some more exercises, but all of the same principles apply. Okay. It's a really powerful way for you to begin to build and create community around you, right? The reason it takes a while for coaching businesses to come off the ground is because nobody knows who you are. And that's okay. That we all started there. Nobody knew who Rich Lippman was for a very long time, right? Or who Steve Chandler was, or who any of us were for a really long time. And we had to, over time, really build that community. And as people come together around you, you'll find some people who really resonate with your energetic signature, with your vibration, with the way you present the content, with what you're saying. And they become avid fans. And those people will bring more people. And you end up with this kind of buzz over time around what it is that you're doing, that eventually you don't need to be pushing that boulder up the hill so much, right? It just begins to somehow levitate on its own, right? It's like, oh, Laura's event, we got Saturdays at Laura's house, and everyone kind of, are you going? And then you'll end up kind of like sold out, pretty much. So you end up making your life a lot easier in the long term. They're also really great for you to run because they're a way for you to kind of like try out your stuff on guinea pigs. Whatever concepts, tools, exercises, ideas, thought bubbles, becoming thought leaders around something, that you're passionate and especially good at or especially well positioned to be speaking about based on your life experiences and everything. They're a really good place for you to kind of like, before you make the YouTube video or write the book about it, present it to a bunch of people for 20 minutes and see what happens. What are they responding to and what aren't they? And do it the next week or next month and retool it. So it's a really good workshop for you to try stuff out, right? It's also a really good, this is, for me, the best reason is that it sets you up as a leader. The quicker you can get yourself into activities and positions where you're at the front of the room, the easier things will be, right? Like walking into, you may have seen my video on Light the Grid that I posted this weekend, some of you, about I'm going to a conference and I don't know anyone and it's so scary and I hate it. I hate this so much, right? Still have that after 10 years of doing this stuff. It's still like, oh, nobody knows me. Why would anyone pay attention to anything I have to say? I have to sell myself basically from scratch to total strangers who don't know who I am, or I'm not a celebrity. And in some worlds, I kind of am known a little, but mostly in the regular world, no one knows who Christina Berkeley is. That's a lot of hard work, right? So if as quickly as you can get yourself out of that game, or, make the balance more that you don't need to do that, where you walk into a room and people are already relating to you as the thought leader. They're suspending disbelief or whatever, even if they don't know you when they walk in the room in the first place, because you're the one running it, they will just project that you know what you're doing because they want to have a good experience and they paid the $25 or whatever it was to it. So you're already the star. And so it becomes very easy, super easy, in the same way that our conversations, right? Because you've served so much, the proposal part is just such a natural, easy thing to do, and you're not doing weird, creepy, pushy sales on anyone. They're already invested. Same thing with running an event. By the end of that 2 hours, if you do a great job of it, and you go, and if you want to know more, come talk to me, blah, 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 your call to action into powerful conversations is just smooth as silk. It's so easy. You'll get a lot of yeses to those invitations. So they're an amazing tool to find your one-on-one clients. Okay. In a similar way that speaking gigs, being called in to speak at different organizations or companies or festivals or whatever, speak for free. You don't need to get paid. Just get yourself speaking on a stage. And then when you're done, people will rush you and then you make invitations and there you go. You fill your calendar. So yeah, okay. So that's why meetups are awesome, or little events. So those of you who are kind of ready, start thinking about what is it? What is this community that I want to bring together? And what's the flavor that I want to create? What is the atmosphere that I want to go to? If you were to go to someplace about something, what do you want it to feel like? What do you want the room to look like? Do you want there to be music? What's the sort of atmosphere? Is it very playful? Is it more serious? Is it more business? Is it more spiritual? Is it outside? Is it inside? What would you go to on a regular basis? People are motivated to seek out things like this because there is an epidemic of loneliness everywhere. Right? Really, people are really lonely. Even people in relationships are lonely, right? Like, like they just can't talk to their person about certain things, or they just don't feel understood, kind of thing. Or maybe they're bored, or they feel within relationships, or they're kind of like static, or they move to a new community. But like people just are doing this all day long, right? And not so much together. That sense of belonging to a community is so important for all of us. So offer that. Offer a sense of belonging. You get to be part of this tribe. You're creating a tribe. I think Seth Godin wrote a book on that, about tribes. I'm not sure. but be that home base. You can become that. It's a great thing to do. And then you'll always have eyeballs on your work and support for it. Any questions so far? No. Okay, cool.
Sorry, not a question, Christina, but something that I've used in the past, and it may not work with all groups, but it's worth considering, is doing it as a sort of strategic partnership. So, for example, I'm looking more at the business side of things.
Yep.
And I've got in mind at the moment, there's a small accountant, a sort of reasonably new company accountant up in a town close to where I live up north. And she, as part of her office space, has actually got a large open area which can be used for events. And of course, she's also got clients.
Yeah.
So she can say to her clients, I'm putting something on for free for you, or for £10 for you. You're getting an expert come in. And so she benefits, I benefit, and the clients benefit.
That's awesome. That's brilliant. That's really, really good. Strategic.
Just got to make it work. Just got to make it work now.
Someone once joked, was like, accountants, lawyers, and hairdressers. Make friends with those people. They all have clients. And their clients tell them their stuff. Like, they have the inside's view of a lot of different people's worlds, right? So they would be able to be like, you know what? There's somebody that I know who you might want to speak with, considering your divorce coming up, or your issues with your business, or your whatever, right? I love that. And also the fact that the space is available, right? Partnerships with people in that way who can offer you the space to work out of, to do the event. That's perfect. Cool. All right. So I'm going to kind of go through the contents of what I did for the 5K project, which is a product I did for EverCoach. It was one of the modules. This was one of the modules. So I'm going to follow that outline to make sure that I hit everything. Okay. Cool. So here's a good point. Another good point. What you're aiming for, okay, is not to give a lot of information. That's not going to be what has people scream your name from the rooftops. Giving them really good information is important. Do it. Make sure that you have some section in your event, evening, whatever, where you give them some very good information. However, people can, I can read this book and look at 600 pages and get really good information on what to do with my money, right? Let's say that's what my thing was about, right? How to financial literacy, whatever, right? I could just read this freaking book. If I go to a meetup on financial literacy and they basically spend 2 hours talking to me about really good content, and I'm taking notes and they put charts and all sorts of things, and they talk at me about, it's going to be a little bit more valuable than me going to a cafe and reading this book for 2 hours and taking my own notes and underlining things. Okay. People think that that's what they want. So you kind of have to sell it like you're going to give them a lot of information. They're going to learn the 10 steps to X, right? Because our conscious mind leads us in this, how we've evolved in the society we've created for ourselves. That's what we put value on, right? So like, give them that stuff for their minds to chew on it. But you need to know that you're being like a secret Jedi, okay? You got like a secret Jedi mission when you're running your events. And I love that Catherine really did a good job of this when she just like out of nowhere pulled an event out of thin air in like a week and a half. You are there to give them an experience, okay? Like, you are there to help them feel something in their bodies, in their energetic system, emotionally, that they would not otherwise experience on a Tuesday night, right? Like, surprise them. They think they're coming for some really cool discussions on, you know, developing their real beauty as a woman, right? They did not expect to be crying and telling people stuff about their insecurities and da da da. And by the end of it, like having an experience of actually truly feeling how absolutely beautiful they are and so empowered that their whole body is buzzing and they don't want to leave the room because they feel high as a kite. On the realization that they're just perfect, truly, not as a conceptual concept, but like in your presence and the magic that you created, it's like the bells just are ringing from the heavens. Okay. That's what you're going for. Even though they think they're coming to learn makeup tips or something, right? Okay, that is a similar thing. That's why the Prosperous Coach really rang to me, because I was doing these things for 3 years before I read that book. Really spoke to me because it was like, exactly, give them an experience. That's the only time anyone will really sign up with you, unless you do like NLP sales call situations kind of thing. But like, that's, you got to have them feel something. Okay, so what are you having them feel? If you're in a more business context, you're going to be a little bit even more ninja about it, because people aren't going to show up in suit. Like you got to feel how much armoring, how much of that persona is that person walking in with, right? How ready are they to feel stuff? So you got to fine tune, but definitely more than they thought they were gonna. Okay, so if you're meeting at the accountant's office, if I'm meeting your people at the accountant's office, I wouldn't do what I would do at the yoga studio for the people coming for a singles night, right? It would be a totally different level of intensity, but still more intense than what they were expecting. Okay, so there's that point. To help you achieve that, your greatest tool, the way you're going to get there, the easiest way you're going to get there, there are other ways to get there, okay? The easiest way to get there and the most powerful and I find the most valuable is vulnerability. Okay, so how can you create an experience that will slowly ease them into deeper and deeper levels of vulnerability, where they feel both safe and that kind of like scary, excited feeling of dropping the social mask that we all have, especially in rooms full of strangers. How do I seem? What do people think of me? You know, that kind of stuff. What do I want to be projecting? And start sharing the real stuff, right? You're going for, I can't believe I just said that in a crowd of strangers. That's what you want them to be experiencing in their minds. Oh my God, I can't believe that this happened. I don't know these people. Right? You'll prompt them to something and you'll be like, really? We're going to do that? And then they're going to experience what it's like to do whatever that exercise is or say the thing themselves, and also feel how good it feels to hear other people say their stuff too. Right? If you do a good job of developing a soup of vulnerability through your evening, you're going to end up with the way you know you did a good job is it'll be done. It'll be like 10 at night, 11 at night, whatever, because usually these happen like after work on weekdays. And people just won't leave. Like it'll be so late. You'll be like, don't you all got to go to bed because you have work tomorrow and you got to drive an hour to get home? Like, you know, and it's 11 and they still don't want to leave because it just feels so good to be in that zone, right? That's all that is vulnerability. And that human connection that happens because of that. They got seen, right? We all want to see and be seen. Help people be seen. They will become your raving fans and then they will bring others. Right? Okay, vulnerability. Great, that's your tool. So how do you do it? So also on that, very important, you got to go first. So whatever it is that you're having them do that's vulnerable, you need to go first to show them I'm in this with you, right? And creates trust in you. And it also gives them an example. It sets the level. Kind of like, oh, we're going that, okay. Okay, so you go first. That's important. So notice within yourselves, there's this interesting paradox in play, right? In one way, you're standing there, you're the leader. So you have to feel into your power and own that space, right? You have that presence, powerful presence. And at the same time, you're going to get really vulnerable. Vulnerability isn't weakness. That is something a lot of people have coded in, especially men, especially successful men, right? It's all like, if you're all in corporate and whatnot, it's all about don't show weakness, confidence, and da-da-da, right? So Heidi?
Give us an example of you being vulnerable in a little way for like in one of these workshops.
I'm going to give you an example. You'll have one in our first call, but let's see.
I can wait if you want to wait, but it came to my mind.
Yeah. As we get, I'm going to get into like exercises, right? And as I talk about those, I'll kind of give examples of what I would do, how I would do that, and go first. Yeah. Okay, cool. Great. Good question. Thanks for asking. Yeah. So you're going to demonstrate for them how you can be powerful and vulnerable at the same time, right? If you're able to be vulnerable in front of a group in that kind of a situation, what it actually communicates is that you have so much confidence in yourself, right? You have so much strength. You have such a great structure on the inside that you're so stable and grounded that you can afford to say, here's my wound and everything's fine and I can hold this room. Instead of, I'm insecure about my stuff, so I'm going to pretend that there's no stuff. We could feel that when people do that. So there's two levels of communicating there. So the more vulnerable you are while staying in leadership, the more powerful they will feel you be. And then you can teach them that because they often don't do that in their own leadership. Yeah. Okay. Oh, but don't fall apart, right? So as you're telling the story of whatever the thing is that you're sharing that's vulnerable, you want to actually feel it. You don't want to talk about it as though it's happening to someone else and you're just sort of telling us, and it's like over there in time and space and it's to another person and you're just telling a story, right? You want to be feeling it while you're saying it. So you take a deep breath, take a moment, do whatever you need to do, and they'll wait. And then start to share about, that time I was assaulted in the street or whatever, right? But like feel the fear and the panic and the whatever it was for real. This was a thing that happened for real. Let them feel you feel it at about 80%. You don't actually want to be in a panic attack or actually start crying to that degree. You want to make sure that you resolve it for yourself and then demonstrate that you're fine and come back to running your workshop. So they never feel a sense of, oh, I have to help Christina. Is she okay? So when you share your vulnerable stories, don't collapse, right? Do both. Your unconscious mind can do both, can hold both. Learn how to do both. Feel it and then come back to being a teacher. And you're okay. Okay, good. It's an art. It's really, it's awesome. And with practice, you can get really good at it. It's really like Jedi fucking magic. Very powerful thing to do. Okay. So that's vulnerability. Let's see, what's next? So let's go through running a meetup. So let's say I have, this can go around any topic, right? This is a format. I'm going to give you kind of a format And then you could do anything. So I'm just going to give you a lot of examples of things to do. I have like a folder like this full of outlines of different topics. Truth telling in the bedroom, how to, I don't know, I could pull it out of the thing and just start going through them all, but they basically follow this kind of order. And what I'm looking to do is create an arc, an energetic arc for them, right? That starts off kind of slow and then kind of builds in intensity and then peaks and then kind of brings them back down, but it still kind of feels really good and safe. And then there's kind of like a little bit of like a woohoo kind of feeling at the end. Okay. So you're building an energetic arc. When people will walk into the room, they don't know each other. They don't know what's about to happen. Everybody's always sort of a little awkward. It feels tight. Okay. That's common unless it's a group of friends or something, right? But a bunch of strangers in a room who don't know each other, they don't know where to sit, they don't like whatever. It just feels kind of tight. Okay, that's fine. Expect it. It's totally fine. It's totally normal. Not a big deal, right? In a sense, it's kind of nice that it's tight because they'll be able to sense the difference by the end. There's somewhere to go from there, right? You're going to soften up all those hearts and connect all those people together. The way you seat people has an impact on what they feel, right? So I started off, for the part where I'm going to be talking to their conscious mind and downloading info, right? I set it up in a way that it kind of feels like a classroom, right? Ish. I don't like tables in the way because I like to be able to move things around if I need, if there's physical movement happening. I like to be able to rearrange chairs in all sorts of ways. So I'll have people in a semicircle and then me in the front talking at them. So they're all kind of connected, sort of friendly. It's not like rows like in a classroom. But I'm in the front. I'm the boss. And then you welcome them. You say hello, right? You tell them a little bit about who you are. Everyone's a little bit tense. Give them the lay of the land, the logistics. Here's the bathroom, et cetera, et cetera. We're here to talk about X. I'm Christina. I've been a coach for 10 years. I work with people around these things. I'm really passionate about XYZ. So glad that you came here today. Your energy is going to determine for them how they should be feeling about all of this, right? So you want to be comfortable, you want to be happy and smiling and making eye contact, right? They will follow you. So if you're kind of tense and unsure and sort of serious, they're going to be tense and unsure and serious. So whatever the way of being is that you're moving towards, that you want this group to go to, be it from the beginning. Okay. And then so tell them what this evening is about, what we're going to be doing, kind of if you want to, in however much detail. Sometimes I like to tell them what we're going to do so there are no surprises. Sometimes I don't. We're going to talk about this. We're going to do some exercises, but I don't tell them what they're going to be, right? I also like to seed the idea of vulnerability at the beginning and talk about it, why it's powerful, why it's wonderful, why they're going to get out of this event as much as they want, right? However much they're willing to allow themselves to be vulnerable, to walk up to the edge of, this is what I would normally do in public and say to a stranger. But what the real answer is X. The more they're willing to actually go over that line and say the thing, the more they're going to get out of this experience. So I educate them. So go for that scary, excited feeling. Oh, I can't believe we're going to say that. Really? If there's confidentiality, create a safe space of confidentiality, whatever you need to do, teach them that it's going to be about vulnerability. There's going to be opportunities for that. How are they going to want to play? It's up to them, right? And then that kind of starts to raise the level of like, ooh, what's going to happen in the room, which is really fun, right? Or it also lets them know, oh, this is going to go deeper than just chat, learning about things, right? So seed that in the beginning. So one of the first things I do with a group after I do my own quick little introduction, before I start teaching the content of whatever the thing is about, is get them in the room. You want to hear their voices. You want them to say something so that they stop being kind of like heads in space, observing and not yet engaged with the experience. So the sooner you get them saying something, anything, the more they'll kind of like feel that they're present and it's their experience now and this counts, instead of being tourists waiting for something, for you to do something. So to do that, one of the easiest things I do, and I've done it with you guys on a Zoom call, right, is kind of like a round robin of sentence stems. All right. Right now I'm feeling. And then everybody goes in the room and fills in the blank with how they're feeling right now. I came here tonight for. Why did they come here tonight? Right? This is what I think about whatever. Or like, let's say your event is around power. Power is, right? What's their first thought on whatever your topic is already? So that you're getting information, in a sense, in a way it gets them in the room. And in another sense, it gives you information on directions to go, right? Like, who are these people? What do they think about this stuff? What level of vulnerability are they at in terms of how they're answering these questions? Where's the energy? What are the interests around this topic, right? What I want to know about power is da 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 da, right? So they're beginning to talk and they're beginning to know each other, and they're in it now with you. And you can begin to craft the questions in a way that they are of increasing vulnerability already. So my name is, everyone says their name. That's not vulnerable. That's a normal thing we tell everybody, right? I came here tonight for maybe a little more self-disclosure, but that's a really easy one to bullshit and just say something appropriate, right? They don't necessarily need to be, but it could leave the window open for that. Power is, now they get to start kind of philosophizing and talking about what they think, and it gets a little looser, right? But then you could go like, the most embarrassing thing that's happened to me this week is, that could be vulnerable, right? All the way to, I wouldn't do this, and you could put little prompts in there about vulnerability. You could put prompts in there like vulnerability is, right? Or this is my favorite way to be vulnerable. Put that in there. Make it a positive. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not at all, 10 being all the way, this is how hard I want to play tonight. Set them up from the beginning with something like that. And then it's exciting. It's like, ooh, it's a game. What's going to happen? And mostly everybody's going to say 10. They'll say 8-ish. You'll get somebody who says 5, and then to be careful on that person. Kind of good information on that way, right? So you pepper in that kind of round robin-y sort of thing to get them in the room, to find out information about them, and to begin amping up a certain kind of energy, right? After I do that, like that's kind of also, people will talk about like icebreakers. If you go to like formal networking events or conferences or whatever, those icebreaker games that people play have a similar function, right? Get people out of that kind of thing. Put stickers on each other's thing, or bingo, who has green eyes, or whatever, those kinds of games. You could do any kind of thing like that. Just be intentional about it, that it's not just fun, but also points to or is an experience of what your theme is, that you're there to help them feel, right? Create, learn about. Okay, so after you do that, present some content, right? Give them stuff to chew on. So you take back the attention. It was all them talking, blah, blah, blah. Now they're more comfortable. They're in, right? Now give them some good stuff, right? Here's, this is blah, 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 what I think about such and such from my experiences, da, 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 da. Tell stories. People love stories, right? While you're telling stories, pepper in was a good time to do it. Pepper in. I was working with a client last week, or something I find often with my clients is that, so their mind is already beginning to learn that you are somebody who has clients, right? Oh, and that they get stuff. They get valuable things from you. People trust you in that way. You create results for people, right? So you're not selling, you're just letting them know my clients this, that, and the other thing, right? Around whatever your topic is. And then give some really good content, right? If you have some way of doing some research before, find some statistics, bring a bar graph, like back it up with some academics or some polling or whatever. People love numbers. They'll trust you more if you give them numbers for some reason, right? That's fine. Give them numbers. And so vulnerable stories, examples of what it is that you do with clients, numbers, really good content and information. And then maybe you have your own, the 5 secrets of how to conquer fear, or the whatever system, your system on XYZ, right? A paradigm or a model that you want to bring about this. What is it that you want to tell them about something? Creativity, or about how to build a coaching practice or whatever. So give them the content. I would say in a 2-hour event, that part should be 20 minutes. Right? That's about enough. You definitely don't want it to be half. Right? You want to do a good chunk of that.
So are you saying the content element?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say 20 minutes of talking about things. If you have like worksheets for them, or, you could be like, you don't need to take notes. I have it all written up for you. Here's a 1-pager with all the main points. Just sit back and absorb whatever the thing is. Right?
Christina, would you deliver the content all in one chunk, or would you break it down a bit?
There's no rules. You could do any of it, right? In some instances, it would be better, depending on what exercises I would do, to do the exercise after I do the content about the thing, because I don't want to overwhelm them with too much, and I want to keep some surprises, right, in the flow of how I do it. In other things, it's like, really, there's 3 points I want them to leave from this event. Here they are, right? And then it's just the flow of the exercises that I don't want interrupted by more talking and getting back into our heads, right? So it depends on what you're doing. It can go in any direction. Like, there's really no rules here. I'm giving you examples, and then you're going to start playing with the pie. But that's a great question. Generally speaking, I like to get the head stuff out of the way, kind of as quick at the beginning, so then we can move into the experiential stuff later, right? And stay there. So the content. After you present the content, there's like any questions, Q&A kind of thing. What do they think about it? Maybe you want to do a couple more sentence stem thingies for them to be able to like integrate, process all the stuff you just said, so that it becomes theirs in some way, right? It's completely fine and natural for it to be a discussion, right? Like, how you guys pop in and put your hand up? Encourage that, right? Make it a discussion so that they can feel ownership of the information coming at them, and you can refine what you're saying to be particularly useful for them, right? And here's kind of another sort of side point. Have your outline, have a number of exercises and tools and things you want to do. Have 3 different options of everything. Before you have like 10 years of experience on it and you can just do it on the fly, you may want to like actually have 3 different things, and then depending on what happens, you'll choose it in the moment. I'm going to do this one. I need something more vulnerable. I need something less vulnerable. I need something for more people. I need something for 2 people. Like, this group is not feeling the thing. We need to get up and start dancing. Be able to like just change on the spot. Okay. So your outline is a suggestion that can turn on a dime. You are interacting and co-creating this experience with the people in the room. And the more you encourage them to participate and be part of that, the better your event will be, because you can really tailor it to them and their energy. And every room of people will have a different energetic signature, right? You're not recreating the same thing again and again and again and again, right? Right. Okay. So after the content, you could have a little, or during even, talk to them, etc., about what do you think about this? Any questions about point one, right? And let that flow and be brilliant and exciting. And let your intuition speak. As you're delivering this content, yes, you have your prepared numbers and you know what you're going to say your 3 points are. But it's a powerful time for you to let go and let that thing come through you. Right? It's not Christina talking. You know, the best, you know, it's kind of like being, it's the best time to be the channel, right? Get it, like, if you could get yourself to that place where you don't even remember what you said, those are the best ones, right? It's like, I don't know where that came from, but like, you're so passionate about whatever it is that you're presenting, and you know it so well that just the brilliance will come from you more than if you memorized your 6 points. You know, have them, hit them, but then just forget about you. Just get so passionate about what you're saying. Touch into that. Right? The more of these that you do, the easier that'll be, because you'll stop being so self-conscious. The first few are kind of like, how do I stand and what do I look like and how are people responding and what do I do next? And that's normal. But after you do it for a while, you'll be able to get in that zone where you just start like passionate. I saw Al Gore yesterday go out like at this conference that I was at. This is funny. Jaden Smith was interviewing, Will Smith's son was interviewing Al Gore around climate, right? Climate stuff. And like, he was doing the talk and you could feel like he had his talking points for whatever. And at some point he just dropped it and he just started speaking from the heart. And the whole room just was like lifted up. Like, he was just passionately going in. It's like, we don't have any fucking time left. He didn't swear. Like, this is it. There's no more excuses, whatever. Like, he just all of a sudden was actually speaking to us, which mobilized everybody a lot more than all of the very smart things he said about climate change. Right. So allow yourself to be that person. Jules, I saw you have your hand up. No. Okay. So as you're delivering the content, it's not the boring part. It's really fun. Okay, so you've delivered your content, you've discussed about it, etc. And then you got the mind is happy. And then you can begin to move into the experiential piece, right? And that is where you start amping up the vulnerability and the connection, right? And the kind of like risky, like, oh, am I really gonna say this about the so one of the okay, I'll give you, okay. So dyads, do you guys all know what dyads are? Dyads, triads, etc. Dyads are like the way of saying, instead of triads, like where there's 3 people, dyads are a way of saying 2 people. Okay. So what I was at a one of these it was like an hour and a half, not 2 hours, at this conference, whatever. They had a little side event that was like exactly this. So popular way to get the energy moving around, right? So you don't want people sitting for 2 hours. You could. It's what we're comfortable doing. We're adults now, right? We sit. We're very serious people. But if at all possible, the body, right, really holds a lot of energy and stuff. You don't need to be holding ecstatic dance. But a nice way to do things is to move the chairs to the side, get rid of the chairs. Now there's this open room, and just get people to start walking around, right? And they all of a sudden have to like look people in the eye. It's like just vulnerable walking around a room with a bunch of strangers milling around. That already is getting them all like sensing things. And do I look away or do I not look away? You know, how are they connecting? And then you can draw attention to that, right? I would often have music playing for this part, right? And as long as the music is playing, they're moving around. And sometimes I'm like, okay, move around really slowly. Okay, move around and look at everybody in the eyes that you're gonna move around like you're like 5 years old and skip around the room. Move around like you're in molasses. What games? Just things to get them out of their head and just get them fluid and interacting, like little molecules in a glass of water with each other. And they don't know what's going to happen next. And as long as you're telling them to do something, that gives them permission to behave in ways that they normally wouldn't, such as silly, right? Walk around like you're the most powerful person in your company, whatever it is, whatever state it is that you want to work with. And then I would somehow signal that they need to stop moving, right? So I would do it by letting them know when the music stops, freeze, right? Or you could do whatever you want to do, right? When you ding the bell or when you say stop or whatever. And then they stop moving and then they find the person that's closest to them. And that's their partner for the next exercise. Okay. Of course, you don't need to do moving around. You could just say, find a partner. And then they move their chair and then they look at the person beside them and then that's their dyad. You can just do that if you don't want to get all complicated with moving around the room. Or they could put numbers out of a hat, or they could pick straws out of a thing, or they could, like watch Top Chef or something, how they pick teams. There's like, which color bandana did you get out of the hat or whatever, and that's your partner if you want to make it random. And then do some kind of like interesting dyad exercise that begins to explore your topic and how it pertains to them. Okay. One way to run a dyad exercise is one person, like if you do the root stem thing, one person will say a root stem and then the other person answers it. And then the first person will say thank you. And then they'll repeat the same root stem. And then this person has to answer it again. And then they just keep doing that with the same root stem for like a minute or 2 minutes or something, a long time. Because often the first 3 to 5 things you say off the top of your head isn't the real thing. And it gives your unconscious mind a little bit of time to organize itself to allow some of the deeper truths, awarenesses that you have around X to come up, right? So, I want a successful job. I want a happy relationship. I want ice cream. I want, thank you. I want to be able to walk into any room and feel really comfortable. Thank you. I want the guy I'm dating to think I'm the most beautiful woman in the room every single time we're walking around. Thank you. I want to have like divine inspiration lead me in everything that I do. Thank you. I want, and you keep going past where the person's like, I don't know what to say next. I got no more. And if they just stay silent, that's okay. Just say, I want again. And another thing will come up from, I don't know where that came from. That's the really juicy stuff. Okay. So it's almost weird how long you're going, but really that's when the really cool stuff comes out. So pick interesting root stems like that increase in vulnerability. The first ones are really easy, and then they kind of build. So you'll do like 2 minutes in one direction, you'll say stop, and then you do 2 minutes in the other direction so the other person gets to go, right? And then you put the music on, they mill around again, you say freeze, you get another partner, and then you do another root stem that's a little more vulnerable, right? So maybe the first one can be kind of neutral or kind of like a feel-good one. The second one can be a little bit more vulnerable. The third one can be like hard, like to have them ask something about when things go hard. This is how you'll know when I'm like crashing, like this is I really don't like this about myself. These are the places that I don't think I'm good enough. Like you could get, those are sort of more vulnerable sort of, right? But now they kind of know each other and they're loosened up that they're actually willing to go there. One of my favorite ones to end on in terms of like with these dyads raising up the vulnerability bits is if you knew me, you would know. Like if you knew me like my best friend knows me, you would know that I used to suck my thumb until I was 18. Thank you. If you knew me, you would know I really hate licorice. Thank you. If you knew me, you would know I'm scared often that I'm going to die alone without anybody there with me. Thank you. Right. Like if you keep going, people will say stuff like that and end up crying in each other's arms. Right? Not that you know. So that's kind of like, and of course around your topic, whatever your topic theme is, right? You don't need to go to that level, right? If you're doing a business thing at the accountant office, you're not going to go to that level, but you still can get into sort of vulnerable details about people's journeys as entrepreneurs, right? Or running businesses. These are the places I doubt myself. These are the things I can't tell my team. These are the things I wish, I wish people knew X, or I wish people did X, or secretly this is what I'm tolerating, or secretly this is where I think it's not my fucking fault. I don't want to take responsibility here, right? Or whatever, right? You can find ways to make it vulnerable for them. Also, in the experience that I just described for you, the way you train them to do that exercise will impact the power of it in terms of raising that spaceship off the ground. That is the energy of the room of this event that you're creating. So you want to have them stand facing each other, and people will like do this, like they'll like cross their arms, or they'll put their hands behind their back, or they'll do all sorts of, they'll stand like with one hand on a shoulder, whatever. They'll do all sorts of weird things. So you want to guide them in how to hold space for their partner who's doing this exercise for each other. So their hands are at their sides. Okay. They're looking their partner in the face. They're trying to hold a neutral expression. It's as neutral as possible. If you knew me, you would know. And the person, blah, 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 blah. Thank you. Really receive it. Let it move through your body, whatever they said, and then drop it into the ground. If you knew me, you would know, right? And demonstrate that for them in a still space like that, right? So make sure you demonstrate this with somebody so they can see it, right? The person who's giving the answer, they're doing the same thing. They're letting their body be still, their hands actually at their sides, looking in the person's eyes and saying the thing. Okay? Something really, really important for you to underline, bold, highlight for them, put sparklers around it, is the person who's asking the thing doesn't need to nod, doesn't need to hug them if they say something difficult. You're holding the space and witnessing without saving anybody or agreeing with anybody. You're a blank canvas. It's much more powerful that way. So nobody feels any like, how do I act in this situation when somebody just like shared a thing, or if they say something and it's the same for you as well, don't be like, I know, totally. Don't do that. That's all about you. All of a sudden you took all the energy away from that person. You're holding space. You're like a sacred oracle in a way. And then even more importantly than that, when the exercise is done, so I'll say start, and then it'll go one direction for 2 minutes. If you knew me, you would know, da-da-da. If you knew me, you would know, da-da-da. If you did, da-da-da, right? I'll give them 30 seconds, or I'll tell them if it's a 2-minute thing. 30 seconds, I'll scream that into the room so they kind of know to wrap up. And then I'll say time, and then they know to stop. And then I'll say change directions, 2 minutes, and then they go the other way. So make sure that you're able to like announce the container and the process really sharply. So there isn't kind of like, what are we doing now? Right? Let them feel you holding that structure. And then when the whole thing is done, when both in the interruption where they switch sides And then when they go back to moving around the room, tell them they could like give a bow to their partner to say thank you, but don't talk about it and don't start laughing. You're building energy through this whole event that you're running. As much as you can, help people not dissipate what's happening sensationally in their bodies and their energetic systems by chit-chatting and laughing. Oh my God, I can't believe, oh my God, that was so cool. Blah, 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 blah. Ha, 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 we talked about whatever. You're just gonna, if you don't say something, you're gonna just start hearing them like chirping birds to just like release, you know, like offset. Like they just built up this pressure of this thing that just happened in this tight container that you created. And then they're just gonna wanna like let the steam off. Don't let that happen. You're building it to the best of your ability. So I'll be like, no talking, just walk. Shh, everyone. If you hear them doing, be funny about it, but be the boss. Keep building that energy. And then more diets, more diets, more diets. Okay. So I would say that kind of an exercise is like you really have your hand on the lever here on how vulnerable you can get them to get, you want them to get. And you can walk around while that's happening and hear what people are saying and hear how deeply they're going. Right? And then you can curate what your next sentence stem is based on what you're hearing people say. If a lot of them are talking about and something really interesting just popped up, follow that thread and make the next sentence stem about that. Right? You have flexibility here also. And this is a good example, Heidi. Like I gave some examples, right? Like I'll do it with somebody first and I'll have them ask me, right? So they'll ask me and my responses, I make sure that I'll go, yeah, and tell them the first 3 things you say are going to just be off the tip. I wish my parents knew. I wish my parents did this, you know, this is love. Love is, you know, my favorite way to kiss someone is, whatever. And then you say it. So you'll say one thing that's kind of like flat and neutral. You'll say another thing that's kind of good and funny. And then you'll say a third thing that's like, I can't believe Heidi just said that in public. I used to suck my thumb until I was 18. That's a vulnerable thing to say in a room full of strangers. It's true. It's right? Like, whoa, she just said that. Right? Or sometimes I still feel anxious walking down the street from the time that I was attacked in Brooklyn. That feeling's never gone away. Just say that. So then people know that they can talk about trauma. It's a safe space to do that. It's like, whoa. So demonstrating there would be a good place to set the tone. Cool. So that would kind of be the middle exercise, some version of that. And then you have your big kahuna exercise. So you've like warmed them up, you've tenderized the meat pretty much, right? Now they all kind of know each other and they all have information about each other, right? Which you can then play with. So the second, like the last sort of, because we're talking about a 2-hour thing, you're not going to have that much more time. So you have your intro, you have your like first round of round robins, you have 20 minutes of content, you have this thing, which is going to last 30 minutes-ish, right? With a few of these stems or some other version of something like this, you know, pick yours. It could be doing art together or whatever it is, right? Some level of, but starting to talk about and getting connected to each other. And starting to get vulnerable about something. And then I'll do things that like the next thing is like, rah, right? So one example is a thing I did around beauty, revealing your natural beauty. So they started off with making lists of everything that they thought was horrible about them, which was really easy. I gave them all paper and pen and be like, all the ways you judge the way you look. How are you not beautiful? And every woman in the room was just like writing a novel of all the ways they're not beautiful. We are so good at it. That started talking about how you are beautiful. And it's just like, right. So after tenderizing, talking content, and then dyads and like getting them loosed up, the last thing I had them do was stand in front of the room one at a time, which is why I don't like super big groups. Like 8's kind of my favorite number because there's time for everyone to go one at a time to something, right? They get their shot at it. If you do one like that kind of exercise at the end, stand at the front of the room and talk for 2 minutes while I recorded it about how beautiful they are and really own it. And like, you should just see people like deer in the headlights, so uncomfortable, break down crying, can't do it. It's so triggery. Okay, that was an example of one of the things. Or you could have some people stand up at the front of the room one at a time, why they're so great at, or how they're so powerful, right? Sing their praises. People are so not used to singing their own praises, right? Heidi?
You said you record it, and I wondered if what do you do with the recording? Do you give it to them, or
Yeah, I send it to them.
Okay, just wanted to know. Thanks.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to record it. I did that one time out of 3 years of
It
meetups.
can be nice. I thought it could be nice. I just wasn't sure. Yeah.
Yeah, send it to them. Okay. And it's so cool because like people will see each other like, ah, you know, but they're all in it together. It's so bonding, you know, we're all going through this thing together, and then they won't leave the room. Right. And everybody loves an underdog. So they'll feel each other's underdogness and then totally pull for each other in whatever challenging thing you have them do together. It's really cool. So that was an example of one of the more heightened intensity things. I did another one where it was like a light your fire. I called it light your fire. It was another women's one. And that energy of being turned on and how it isn't dependent on a man being nice to them or taking them on a good date for them to be turned on. Like that life energy, kundalini thing, whatever that is yours. And you could flip that switch at any moment. And it makes you so much more magnetic and your life is so much more fun and you have so much more capacity and whatever. But I also at the time was a relationship sexuality teacher. So I kind of went in this direction where I had 3 Post-it notes. They were all the same color. There were 3 and each one of them had a different prompt and they had to each come one at a time and pick one. And then whatever was the prompt on it, they'd have to talk for 2 minutes about that. And the prompts were something like, this is my favorite moment in a kiss or something, but they have to talk for 2 minutes about that. Another one was a secret fantasy. No, my favorite fantasy is, and then they had to talk about that, reveal that. Or a secret taboo desire I have is, and then they had to talk about that one was really, you know, and then like, but by now people had been talking about things so much and they trusted each other that they were like, I'm really going to tell a group of, you know, like my actual secret desire that I taboo, you know, and someone will be like, every single time there's a woman who these all women who puts her hand up and describes in detail, because I've done a good job, blah, 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 like a totally intense kind of almost rape fantasy in an alley or something, right? And can't believe she's about to say it. She's like, I can't talk about that. And then all the women are like, say it. What's your thing? You know, we're so. And then she'll say that. And then she'll just go completely red. Can't believe she said that in a room full of people. And then I'll ask the room, who else has had one of those? And then everyone puts their hand up, right? That's a particular intense example in that kind of subject area. But it's a demonstration of how the more personal you are able to elicit people sharing from, the more universal whatever that experience is, right? Just the collective catharsis when people realize that their deepest fears, that their deepest hurdles and obstacles and troubles and whatever they are actually aren't, you know, to be like, everyone shares that. It is so cool when that happens in a room. Okay, so you could play games like that, right? Having people share kind of scary stuff. Prepare interesting, fun ways to do that. I've had things where like I have people have like pads of sticky notes and then prompt them. They're not allowed to talk. Prompt them on what to write on the note and then start passing around to people, right? What is something encouraging you'd like to say to someone in the room? Because they've had an entire evening of hearing people's stuff in the room, right? And they start writing notes and handing them to each other, right? Make someone blush, depending on your event. And they'll start writing, like creating like, really, I can't believe it, right? Put a note about that. Tell someone a secret. put it on a thing, and then they hand it to somebody. So the only one person knows it. And you get them milling around with music while they're writing little post-it notes to each other, and sharing vulnerably real stuff that you're giving them a prompt to share. So it's not their fault, it's yours. So it gives them permission to get seen. Another one is something milder and nice. They're in groups of 2. Have them each share something about the topic, etc. So their power story, a moment in their life that they've super overcome something, and this is how they developed their superpower about X, right? And then they each share each other's power story. And then they each get up at the front of the room and describe the other person's, how amazing the other person is. So instead, it's a little less intense than someone describing how amazing they are themselves, is having somebody else be like, Christina, when she was 5 years old, XYZ from Romania, and she was able to get on a plane by herself and blah, blah. And from there, she's so cool because blah, 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 which is really neat to hear other people describe you back to you. That's another one. There's a million different kinds of things that you could find all over the internet, exercises to do in groups. So find the ones with the most intensity around whatever your topic is, and play with that. There'll be one that we do later on in Hatch. You'll know what it is when we get to it. I don't want to give it away now to do it then. You'll know where it could get very personal with people in that way. So this is your big climax of your event. And now you have about 10 minutes left. Okay, so the exercise is complete, and now is the close. So you can feel as I'm speaking that you've taken them on a journey, like you just went like this energetically. That's what you're paying attention to, right? If you feel it stalling out at whatever your exercises are, get creative on the spot to get people start firing, you know? Okay, so the closing is kind of the business part, right? And how do you do that part in a way that smoothly blends in to they're in a zone, right? So I would then put the chairs back, if you haven't already, and have everyone sit in a circle, because now we're a community. It feels different than a semicircle. We're all together now, it's a whole. If you can, so a circle feels really good now. And that's our event, everyone. How's everyone feeling? Da, da, da. They say some stuff. Awesome. So insert call to action. The way you do this will determine how they feel about it. If you do it like you're totally calm, confident, and enthusiastic about what you're saying, so will they be. If you're like, I don't want to start selling you stuff I feel uncomfortable about, I don't know if it's okay if I'm saying this, but humor me anyway, kind of vibe, then that's what they're like, oh, I have to make her feel okay about the fact that she's saying this to me right now. Don't do that to them. Be okay with the fact that you're saying this right now, okay? This was just the tip of the iceberg of what I do. I hope you got a sense of fill in the blank or whatever. I'm passionate about this. I work with people on this, and we go a lot deeper. I build my practice by word of mouth. You've heard me say that before, right? Because you guys have been so fill in the blank. If you're curious and interested in going deeper and exploring even further, particularly on how this matters to you and how to apply this and build this up, foundations of for your business, for your life, for your love life, for your whatever, you can talk to me. Also, I have a Facebook group, et cetera, and I have a piece of paper on a clipboard or a notebook or something, tactile with a pen. Like, I don't automatically put people on my email list or whatever. I want everyone's buy-in before I do anything. right? I'll put like columns, name, email address, and then I'll have, you know, if you want to know if they want a conversation with you, a 2-hour conversation, have a column for that. Or have like a column for, do you want to be in my Facebook group? And then another column for, do you want to be, so they could just check mark, you know, Facebook group, and then conversation, you know, a powerful coaching, free coaching session, right? So whatever, I'd love to offer you guys a session. Then we could just deep dive. I won't do any sales or anything like that, but we could take this further, right? If you're interested. I'm going to send this around. So write your name, your email address. If you want to be in the Facebook group, just check that off. And then if you want to talk further about having a private session, I'll waive my fee. We could go further, right? And you're all sitting in a circle. So then, and you feel really good about it and you're enthusiastic. Or if you're interested in my workshop in 2 weeks or whatever it is that your offering is, right? And everyone is feeling awesome, like you built that excitement. So you're going to get a lot of people check things off and put their email down. So you send the thing with the pen in one direction in the circle. And then in the other direction, you close with I do 3 rounds of fill in the blank, like we did at the beginning, which they now recognize. They know what to do, right? So the first sentence Tim I like to do is, I'm leaving here tonight with. And it's really nice to hear what they got out of it. This is where they say what they got out of it. And you often hear really interesting, surprising things. So I'm leaving here tonight with, and everybody says what they're leaving here tonight with, right? And then and while that's all happening, the thing's going around, right? I'm grateful for. It's a nice positive one. And then this one you can do in 2 ways. I'm ready for. And you could go around and everybody says their thing. But an even more fun way to do it, so that, because this is all playing the piano of energy, right? You really want to leave them on a high, like you just want to like blow up the last firework at the end of the show, right? You have them all do it at the same time. So it's like this one we're going to do different. We're all going to say all of the things we're ready for, not just one. All of the things that you want in your world, that you are ready to manifest, to create, and you're going to feel it and say it as though God is listening to you right now, and it totally counts. And we're going to all put all of it in the soup in between us, all at the same time. Ready? Go. And then you got to go because they won't know what to do. So you have to go, right? Just start talking and feel a little uncomfortable, but start saying, right, for you, legitimately, I'm ready for my business to take off. I'm ready for meeting the love of my life. I'm ready for a hot fudge sundae. I'm ready for, and have lots of fun and just keep going. You got to do it. Okay. And then they'll just jump on the bandwagon, and all of a sudden you have 8 people talking about all this cool stuff that they're ready for with all this energy. And it's kind of like building and building, and it sounds like popcorn because there's all the people like, talking and talking on top of each other, and the energy is just all like excitement and da-da-da, and they're doing it, and then you're listening for the pace of the talking and the din of the noise, and you'll hear when people are kind of running out of things to say, and there starts to be a little bit of space in the noise, and it just starts to be a little bit like a single kernel pops, kind of like when you're hearing popcorn popping. You can just sort of hear when it's starting to be the end of it. And as you start hearing that, you count them down. 3, 2, 1, pop, right? And then they know to stop talking. And it's just like, thank you, everyone. That's the end of your event. You just left them on this crazy, awesome high. Okay. That's one way to create a crazy, awesome high firework at the end. There's a million. Get creative. What is yours? Right? And then since you're going to be doing tons of these, you get to practice and try all sorts of stuff out on the guinea pigs, right? What sort of people, what kind of versions of something like that will get to that vibe? It's the vibe more than the specific exercise that you're going for. most of the time that piece of paper didn't get a chance to go all the way around. So if you haven't had a chance to put your name down and you're still interested, you could find the notebook or come talk to me, right? And then people are just going to like not want to leave. Like they're going to rush you at the front of the room for more, right? Because they had so much more fun than they thought coming to talk about the 5 steps to whatever, right? And they'll put their name down. And that's an example of how to run a meetup. There's so many different kinds of ways to develop those experiential moments around whatever your topic is to help them get vulnerable and get connected to each other so they feel that feeling of belonging. And all of a sudden, you're this magician Yoda guide that has developed a lot of kind of authority and trust and curiosity for more. Right? And you know they're going to bring people next time. Right? Cool. Oh, hi. Hi. Does anyone have any questions? Laura.
So I have my first meetup scheduled in 10 days.
Yay. Awesome.
How do you get more people to come? I only have 3 people signed up now. There's like 30 in the meetup group.
Mm-hmm.
Do you do any reaching out? Is there any tips you have on to create more interest?
Great. Okay. So what if only 2 people show up? That's like the next no.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What's the name, Laura, of your meetup?
It's called Auburn Positive Self-Awareness Collective.
Thanks.
And then what's the actual topic of the meetup?
I'm doing bucket list.
Oh, great. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I think okay, so on the Meetup platform, are you using the Meetup platform? Great. So you have 30 people in your Meetup group now, the general, whatever. Of those 3 said they're coming.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Great. They may or not come. Maybe 1 will come. Maybe none will come.
Well, they already paid.
So they already paid. Awesome. Because you can pay on the platform.
Yeah.
So make the price of it about 2 cocktails. The price of 2 cocktails wherever you live.
Okay.
Don't do it for free. Okay. You want your people invested. You want them to show up. You are filtering for potential clients. That's why you're doing this. You're not doing these to make money, right? You're doing this to establish yourself and make contacts and make powerful invitations. So it's really helpful for you to charge something as just a barrier to entry in a little bit. Also, when they show up, they'll get more out of it because they'll be more engaged because it's not a throwaway, right? People don't really value what they get for free. So good. So, and then they're more likely to show up because they put the money in. They still might not show up. Okay. On Facebook, for example, so you can create a Facebook event. Do you know how to do that?
I think so.
Create a Facebook event and then invite everybody in your area. Just go through your friend lists. I think there are plugins you can get for Chrome or whatever that can organize your people by location. So when I lived in New York, I would just hit New York and then I would just invite all my New York list of friends. So that's one way. Talk about it, post it on your timeline, tell people, right? How much have you been telling people? Call everybody you know. So there's personal calling invitations. Hey, I'm running a thing. Do you want to come? Do you want to bring a friend for free? Who do you know who'd like to come? Right? I think through the Meetup platform, you can send messages to your 30 people. It's like, hey, every fun thing. Da-da-da, come on, whatever. We're going to have so much fun.
You can send individual messages or group messages to the whole, general.
Okay.
Leave flyers at your coffee shop. Wherever the location is, leave flyers at the location. I used to run mine at a yoga studio, so I'd have them put that it's happening in the yoga studio's newsletter, right? And on those affiliate things for the future. Who could you get to collaborate with you and do it with you, and then get their list, send it to their list. If you want to do that kind of thing, I used to have like a whole spreadsheet.
Okay.
that for every meetup that I had, I would have to like then market it on, post it on all these things. Craigslist. There's a thing called Quentin's Friends in New York. That's kind of like a curated Craigslist. Nextdoor. Do you have Nextdoor? Put it on Nextdoor. So at the public library, put a thing. So research in your neighborhoods. What are the publications, the whatever, where local events are posted? So there will be some amount of time and energy that you're going to be spending getting people in the room. And I found when I was really using this as a thing, that is part of my business. It like creating the clients wasn't the hard thing. I was no longer going out to get people into powerful conversations or whatever. I didn't know how to do that, to enroll them into coaching. All of my effort was like, how do I get people into my meetup? That was all of the marketing campaigns were, how do I keep people in that room? Once they're in that room, then it flows beautifully. But like, that was like, how do I just get them in that room? Right. And as you do more and more, they'll just start coming. If you have 2 people show up, it's great. Because then that is actually kind of a powerful conversation. So serve them with as much interest and enthusiasm and deeper, because there's only 2 of them. Really go there. Yeah, Heidi?
So if 2 people came, would you still pretty much follow like the format example that you gave us? Because, walking around is kind of with 2 people.
I would adjust it to what makes sense.
Right.
Right? Like,
yes.
I don't think when I had 2 people that I had them walking around.
But maybe
I have them do the same exercises.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Or different ones, or I just stop and then we would just coach around whatever the thing was. It would turn into coaching, deep dive coaching, right? That would be witnessed by the other person, right? Like there, you got to let your intuition go, but you're basically skipping a step. You get to go straight to the powerful conversation, basically, with only 2 people. So there's that. So always keep that in mind. Like for Facebook events, what we know who run events, etc. Let's say 50 people say they're coming, expect 10%. Okay, so if you get like 10 people on Facebook saying they're coming to the event, you're going to get 1. It's totally normal. That's just how it is. Okay, it's not a big deal. Versus personal invitations on the phone or private messages, like actual people you personally connect with and invite, much higher, much more likely that they're going to show up. Right. And then like you can invite people within other communities, right? Like the church group, they all kind of know each other. So get one person into it from there, and then they can bring all their friends. So what are other kind of little networks that you're connected to that you could then get at least just one person excited about it? Hey, what if we did a thing just for you guys? And then bring them that way. Sweet. Oh.
Just a question about the a sort of thought really about, you said you have a clipboard with the put your name here, and then there's all the different email, join the Facebook group, come to the next meeting, whatever. And I was just thinking about, I might be overthinking it, about sort of groupthink setting in. Because if it starts to go round and the first 2 people say, I don't want to have a second conversation, or I don't want to have a conversation, or I don't want to be on the email list, whether there's a potential for others then start to look at that and go, oh, well, I'm not going to change it either. I'll just do the same. So I'm just wondering about the alternative of having, a small sort of postcard size with the same information on, but it just goes around to an individual. So Christina, here's yours. And then they just fill out their name and then they tick the boxes to what they want.
Brilliant.
Have you had any thought, any response about that sort of groupthink type idea? Or
I've never experienced in a way that I got the sense of that. I kind of always end up with some like raving fans in the room, people who like come to a thing after a thing after a thing, and they're always kind of like almost like shills without intentionally being shills. That then the groupthink works in my favor.
I'm just thinking if those people just happen to be at the end.
To sit. No, you just tell them where to sit.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So I'd always know, like when we do the one mind kind of the sentence done stuff, my more advanced people who were actually part of my community would sit in the first and second chair, because that's me giving an example of how to answer it, and then they can give an example, and then that sets the tone. And then when it goes this way, they could sit here. You just, right, you could set that up in that way to work with the groupthink. But I think you have a great idea. Keeping it anonymous might really work for some people. That's right. And as an example, everything I just said is an example. It's not the way to do it, but it's something for you to start with if you don't have any ideas yet, to play with on your own. And just the most important part, sense energetically what that ride is that you're creating and what the experience is, right? The way doesn't matter as much. Cool. Any other questions? No. Okay. Cool. Okay, great. Wonderful. We'll stop the recording.